Perfect. Okay, Anne-Marie, thank you so much for joining us today. I really, really appreciate it. And I can't wait to hear everything that you're going to tell us about your journey.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I would love for you to start out about how you started out at People Magazine and you've worked your way up to a male-dominated industry and being a CEO at Whalerock Industries.
Well, it's quite a long story. I came over from Australia in my 20s to work at People. I'd been working at Time Magazine in Australia as a writer, and the guy who hired me at Time was American, and he came back to work for his Time Inc. As a more senior guy at Time Inc. invited me to come over for one summer and work for them at People, which I did, and it all worked out, and I wound up moving, thinking, I think almost every Australian you ever hear about who moves overseas says, I thought I'd move for 2 years. 2 years seems to be the ticket. And I wound up staying. So I had a great ride at People. I was there for 8 years, and then I stayed. After having kids, I stayed at Time Inc. and worked for Real Simple, which was a little bit of a monthly schedule, which was easier than the weekly. And then in terms of getting to LA, my husband and I made a decision after our twins turned 5 and we were living in a 4th floor walk up in Brooklyn, that life wasn't sustainable for us anymore. So we made a real lifestyle decision to move out to the West Coast. So that's how we got to LA. And then I took some time working for myself and then wound up consulting for what was then Bourbon Braun. And it was a company founded by Lloyd Braun and Gail Berman, both very big Hollywood names. And Lloyd wound up buying out Gail. I ended up working full time for the company and wound up at the end of last year becoming CEO. That's the short version.
That's a short version. That's great. So how are your skills that you were doing at People and Real Simple being applied to your current job? Or was it a complete rework of what you were doing and all new skills?
It's both different, but also very useful. I think that having come up in a creative part of the industry was very, very useful in running a team and running a business. So I learned about running a business on the job. So
right.
My MBA came from running a bunch of businesses for Lloyd and running a bunch of different businesses for Whalerock, and really asking a lot of questions and learning that way. And so I think if you're steeped in what it is your industry produces, in my case, content, digital products, digital media, digital commerce, if you're steeped in how to do that and then you learn the business side of it, I think it's much easier than if you are steeped in business and have to then learn the creative side, if that makes sense.
No, it definitely does. I mean, because look at how much the industry has changed over the course of your career, right? I mean, when you started out, there wasn't really the digital aspect as much, it wasn't as important. And your industry has completely flipped on its head in the past 6 years, 7 years. I don't even know what that year is, but.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's really been pivot or die in media in the last several years. And I think that those small companies like ours that have come through have pivoted regularly. So being able to look at what's happening, anticipate what's coming, and adjust and adapt, it helps to be small in that environment. I think it helps to be either very, very big, as you'll see with all the media conglomerates that just keep eating each other up. You're either very, very big or you're small and nimble. In our case, small and nimble's been working pretty well.
That's great. Now, when you started out originally as a writer, did you ever think, okay, I'm going to be CEO of a company someday, of a big Hollywood company?
No, I think it's safe to say no. That was not part of the 5, 10 or 20-year plan for me at all. I've been very fortunate in working for places where I've been able to learn a lot from the people who've come before me and really learn on the job, as I mentioned. And I think it was a natural evolution. As you said, the industry changed, and the line between the creative side of the industry and the business side of the industry, which once was very clear, began to blur, I think, about 10 years ago. And if you're working in a small organization, you're inevitably going to be having to take on those business roles as well as the creative roles, especially as you move into leadership. So if you're leading a creative team, you're inevitably going to be making business decisions. And so, you know, that evolution, I think, is something that's characterized the media industry and the entertainment industry over the past several years. So I think I just evolved along with that, and fortunately, you know, developed the skill sets needed and developed the relationships needed to get into this position, which I really enjoy, but was not something that I kind of had earmarked for myself early on.
That's great. Now, what do you think is the hardest part of being a CEO?
COVID.
Yeah, that was my next question, but yes.
It is. It really is. Hey, I'm going to stop you there for a second because there's construction noise coming through my
Yeah.
window. So let me just shut my window and then I
Okay,
can
that's fine.
maybe start with that question again. All right. That's a bit better.
Yeah, that's better. That's better. Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, so what has been the hardest part about being a CEO?
COVID.
That was my next question, but
So the hardest part, I think, you know, so I was COO of the company before this, so I was really kind of operating the day to day. So I was very familiar with, you know, everything top to bottom that was going on in the company, really in the weeds, but also at the top, making those big decisions along with our former CEO and our CFO. What changed is that when you're CEO, it's all on you. Like that, the buck stops with you is very true. And I think being ready for that accountability and for that responsibility, especially when difficult times hit, as they have in 2020, that is the hardest thing. For me, the hardest thing is really being responsible for the jobs and lives and professional happiness of a lot of people.
Now, since you brought that up, what COVID, how have you guys adjusted, or how has Whalerock adjusted with the COVID? I mean, obviously you guys are not at all making content like you used to, and just what else has changed?
So, you know, we have a few kind of major parts of our business at the moment. One is straight traditional TV production, and the other is a consulting business. And the consulting business came out of our experience in building, developing, and operating digital and content products for brands and for celebrities over many years. And so that part of the business is kind of in one corner. The production business is probably easiest to describe when it comes to COVID because it basically shut down. So the business is still going, but production has shut down. So we've had to really adjust the way we operate that business so that we are heavily developing new content and heavily developing new shows to sell, because there's an incredible appetite in the marketplace for new content, because what's everybody doing right now? They're sitting at home watching TV. So there's a lot of new development happening in our studio, and we have a couple of very big productions, and it has been a really interesting logistical exercise to try and work out how we get those back on track during COVID. So one show we run, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
One show we run is BattleBots, which, as it sounds, is a massive arena show with teams flying in from all over the world and building robots and then fighting those robots in a huge competition. Figuring out how to stage and produce that show during this period of time, during a quarantine, has taken a lot of thought and effort. It's really tricky.
So you are actually in production again for some shows?
I'd say we're in pre-production. So we're, you know, as the waves have changed in California. So we had, I mean, I guess we called it we're still in the first wave, but we're in a second surge. So when it looked like the first wave was going to end, we had put a production date on the books. We were going to produce this show. We were going to shoot it in April. Terrible timing. So we had to pause that, pushed it. It was going to be August. We're now looking at September. It may push into next year. The show will go on. It's just, you know, we're just in this limbo period. And I think a lot of production companies are dealing with that. Fortunately, we weren't in a position where we had a giant production staff that we had to lay off or pause. We've got a very small core team in our studio. And I think that's one thing I've learned over the years is if you can maintain a very small core team and concertina up and down as needed, particularly in production, then you're going to be able to weather these kinds of storms as they come along.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it probably won't go back to normal as far as normal production for everybody until after the new year, I would think. Is that what people are thinking?
Yeah, I mean, some productions are up now. I think it depends on
Mm-hmm.
the size and scale of the production. If you know, the more you can do outdoors, obviously, the better. There is another production that we're doing aside from BattleBots that we are intending to do this year because we think we can stage it outdoors. So yeah, there's a lot of strategizing and thinking and planning and testing, and that's a whole new world, right? For everybody.
It
So
totally
that,
is. No, that's great. It's very difficult. I can't imagine running a company and doing all that. And dealing with uncertainty of what's going to happen. Okay, so I have a question. What is the best thing that you enjoy being a CEO?
I quite like being in charge. It's got its pluses and minuses. It really does. But you know, I think at this age and stage of my career, it's not something I shy away from. I feel like, especially, you know, I don't want to say especially as women, but it's probably true. There's a tendency to, you know, to be collaborative to a fault. And I do have a very collaborative management style, but at some point someone has to make the decision. And I think that I feel at this age and stage of my life and career that I'm ready to be the one making that decision. And it feels comfortable to me. It feels really comfortable to me to be the decision maker. And I have an amazing team, which also makes it, you know, a pleasure to do my job. So I'm not in a situation where there's a lot of angst or conflict. I really have worked with the people I work with for a long time. Everybody's really great at their jobs, and everyone's, especially in this tricky time, everyone's just really united to get the job done. And that's exciting to me, to be able to work with people who are motivated and, you know, crave success, but are also really collaborative. That's a great environment. That makes it a fun job to do.
I'm sure you're great at it. And have you found anything with being more in a male-dominated industry? Has that been a challenge at all? Because you meet very few women like that are running big
Yeah,
entertainment companies.
not exceptionally. You know, I think that I've come from a career where a lot of things were run by women, right? In the magazine world, a lot of the publications are run by women. A lot of people on the publisher side are women. So I've always worked in an environment where there have been female role models when I was younger who were in leadership positions. I actually grew up in a family full of men. I have 5 brothers and 1 sister. But yeah, so I don't know. I think that there have been a lot of experiences, particularly over the past few years, that have come to light through the Me Too movement, et cetera, where people have had some real struggles. You know, apart from a dude being a total pain in the butt in a meeting, you know, I haven't really had anything career impacting happen to me because I'm a female.
That's great. That's good to hear. Now, when
You know,
as you take it,
I've had some annoying things happen to me because I'm a female. Trust me, but we've all been through that.
yeah. Well, I used to work in finance, like in investment banking and accounting, which was completely male dominated. So, you know, I could
Yeah.
tell you some stories as well. I mean, but I took it. I'm one of 6 kids and 3 brothers, and so you kind of get used to being around guys. They just operate differently, which is fine. It's, you know, because I knew to just take it in stride, so it was fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's not.
And
It's
not in a sexual way. That's not how I'm talking about it. I'm just saying, it's just you operate differently.
Oh yeah, and it's also, you know, have I been condescended to because I'm a woman? Yes. Have I been spoken on top of because I'm a woman? Yes. Have I been overlooked in meetings and conversations because I'm a woman? Yes. I think I've been fortunate, and I don't think that it's impacted me from a career point of view. But you know, the day to day getting here, yeah, it's been there.
Yeah, right. Okay, so enough said on that topic, but Now, are there any books or podcasts that you look to for insight and inspiration as you lead a company?
Yours.
Oh, you're so sweet.
You know, it's funny because I'm a really, really big reader. I love fiction. I use reading I use book reading, let's put it, as a real outlet to escape and relax and reset my mind. I do read a lot of business materials online. I'm a real omnivore. I tend to, find a lot of people to follow whose opinions matter to me and read what they're sharing. So for example, my daily diet of business reading is probably to jump on LinkedIn and see what all the people that I admire are sharing. And that often tends to be something from, anything from Business Insider to Forbes to Digiday to Adweek to, to Wall Street Journal from time to time, not the political stuff. But really it's, I've become, it's funny because I come from traditional media, but I now consume media in the modern way. I really do, I do graze across different publications and choose what I want.
That's great. Thank you. That was good advice. Now you have a family, like you said, and I think a lot of listeners also are trying to juggle it all. So do you have any advice of how to be a full-time working CEO, staying at home during COVID with your kids, but also having children? Like, is there any tips, any apps, anything that you would suggest that helps you manage it all?
It's different for everybody. I also acknowledge that it would be harder for me to do this job if my kids were younger. I've got 15-year-old twin boys. I have always worked in some capacity, whether it's full-time, part-time, at home, from an office. There's always been something going on, but at various stages of their lives, I've managed to drop it down as needed and pick it up again. But I've always had my hand in somewhere. I feel like for me, that's been really important. I think for younger women who are, pursuing a career and have kids and are conflicted over how much time they're spending with their kids and how much time they're spending on their careers, it's tough. And I would say two things. One, that it's really individual decision and don't listen to people like me, because what was right for me is not going to be right for everybody else. The other thing I would say is kind of coming out the other side of the kid equation is try really hard not to judge yourself, because your kids probably aren't judging you. And that's what I found with my kids. I was constantly torturing myself when they were younger. Should I be at home more? Are they getting enough from me? Am I too focused on what I want to do? And at some point, for me, I really hit a point where I was like, you know what? I've tried the staying at home. I've tried the working part-time. I am someone who needs to work. I am someone who needs some kind of career. It doesn't have to be being a CEO of a company, but I have to be doing something. And that, I believe, for me, makes me a better parent, because I think I would literally drive my children crazy if I was with them 24/7. And now they're 15, they don't want to be with me. I want to be with them desperately. We're all at home here. I get a break in work and I'm going into their rooms, and they look at me like I'm creepy. Creepy. Oh, what do you need? I just want to we're here together. Isn't this great? I just want to be around you. And they're like, crazy lady, get out. Yeah,
it's true. Now it's more about policing them, making sure they're on track and not doing anything they're not supposed to be doing.
I know. And now I've turned into the needy mother. It's terrible, but yeah.
Oh my God, that's funny. That's true. Now, do you have a specific morning routine? You read these books that people get up at 4:30 and they conquer the world before 7 a.m.
God, I hate this.
I don't. I really try. Every day I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. And then by the second day, it just doesn't happen.
That's an interesting one, because I think there's the before times, right?
Yes.
And there's now. And my routine has completely altered with working from home and with my kids being at home. So in the before times, I had really forced myself into being a morning person. I'm not a morning person. I love to stay up late. I'm really productive late at night. But, at some point, for one thing, having children, but also doing this kind of job, especially on the West Coast, where you have to get up really early to make your East Coast calls, I have forced myself into being a morning person. So my before times morning routine was to get up early, exercise, get everybody fed, make lunches, get everybody off to school, get in the car and drive too long and start at the office. And somewhere in there are always one or two calls because of the East Coast thing. So that was my morning routine. Now it varies literally every day. I am not one of those, I get up at 4:30 a.m. CEOs and I only sleep 4 hours a night. I really prioritize sleep. I love sleeping. I love it. I also have a special talent that does not work Monday through Friday for me, but I can really sleep in. Like on the weekends, my kids know not to come near me. I mean, sleep in for me is 8:30, but I mean, I can do that. Some people I know are like, I'm up at 7 and I can't, or 6 and I can't go back to sleep. I can go back to sleep, but I can't do a noon. But on the weekend, like I really prioritize getting some sleep.
That's great. Now, do you have any advice for anybody who wants to get into your industry?
So what I would say is our industry right now is a number of different things, because we're doing a number of different things as a company. So on one side, it's straight entertainment. On the other, we're really a consulting company creating digital and creative and content strategies for big brands and helping them get through. And we do have another little company in the works that we're about to announce that I can't talk about yet, but that's coming in the next couple of weeks. In terms of, and I think the worlds of media and entertainment are very different. So entertainment, I think, is having a boom time right now with all of the streamers. I think that if you take the COVID, if I'm assuming a time beyond COVID and beyond lockdowns, I think there's a lot of opportunity for people who are creative, talented creators and writers and producers and even technical folks on the entertainment side of the business. I think that the whole way we consume content has changed, and where these streaming wars that everyone keeps talking about are really developing a huge market and appetite for that kind of content. So I think it's an exciting time to be entering that world. I think on the pure media side of the business, what I started in was journalism. What I evolved into as we started developing websites and apps and things like that was more, it's kind of a 90s word, but infotainment, if you like. I wouldn't class it necessarily as journalism. We took a journalistic approach whenever we were reporting on something, but a lot of website content is entertainment. It is not held to the same kind of rigorous standards as I believe journalism should be held to. I think that journalism is having a resurgence, thank God. I think that, for a long time, between the politics of fake news and the realities of the ad economy and the competition developed by the internet, that journalism and the principles of journalism were really, really eroded. I just have a sense, and I have nothing really empirical to base this on, but I really have a sense that that's coming back. I have a sense that people are beginning to really value even-handed reporting rather than the constant commentary that goes on. So I think journalism's a tough road. I think if a kid came to me and said, I want to be a journalist, I would have a lot of questions for them. But I'm hopeful that it's still a career.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's good that you brought that up, because someone who graduates with a journalism degree, they don't even have to just think about being a journalist. They can think about entering the world that you're in, where you're writing content for media and entertainment companies.
Yeah, and that's what's expanded, I think, is that there's a skill set in being a journalist that is useful for your entire life. So whether that skill set is being able to distill and communicate information, or whether it's being able to be a good reporter and ask the right questions and elicit the information you need. Those are skill sets that work all the way through your career and can take you in a multitude of different directions. They certainly help me every day. I think being a, I'll often draw on, I'll look back on a conversation and think, well, I got to where we needed to get to because I'm a reporter. Or I'll look at a document that we're trying to get out there, or a piece of content that we're trying to get out there, and being an editor is still a skill that I use every single day. So I do think that education is a really good one.
Mm-hmm. And I love how in the Hollywood industry now, how it's evolving, that an actor is not just an actor anymore. They're taking on their own brand and persona. I look at what The Rock has done in the past 10 years. I mean, it's just crazy. He's become an entrepreneur. He's everything, right? And the number of followers, we were laughing the other day at dinner because we love watching his videos. We were like, if he were to run for president, he probably would win because he has so many followers. I think he has like 300 million followers or something.
Yeah, he does.
It's crazy. So I guess my question is how, it's amazing that these celebrities now have become complete brands, but why doesn't everyone do that? Like, why doesn't everyone become The Rock or Mark Wahlberg, or, these personas, instead of just being an actress? Or is it not as easy as it may look?
That's an interesting one, because I think, I think the way to analyze that, I've never really thought of the why everyone, because it's really directly related to your popularity, right? It's a popularity contest. And it's about being popular, and then it's about being out there and working it. Because if you want to grow a social media following of that magnitude, you have to be constantly communicating with your fans, and you have to be putting yourself out there in a very personal way. I think he, or whoever's working for him, has done a great job of putting his personality out there, creating persona online and on social media that is very attractive to people, that makes his fans want to follow him. He's funny, he's sweet, he's got a gorgeous family, he's so cute with his kids. He's really developing an online story about himself, and that takes work. That just doesn't, that piece of it. He's popular because of his movies and his career as a wrestler, etc. But the social media part, it takes work, because
it's like 20-minute videos, right, that he's putting on.
Yeah, you can be that popular actor, but that doesn't immediately get you the following. You've got to have that constant communication with your fans, because it's a relationship, like anything on social media. You interact with people, and those audiences grow because you're out there all the time. So he works it. He works hard.
Now, do you do that with clients as well? When I was reading your bio, it seems that you work with other celebrities to kind of create a fan base in that way.
Yeah, so over the years, we have created digital apps for the Kardashian Jenner sisters that were direct-to-consumer apps that were subscription-based. So over that period of time, we really developed a finely tuned skill set in that entire marketing funnel of creating an audience and a fan base, using content to drive them to take some kind of action, whether it's to purchase something like a subscription, whether it's to come back for more, whether it's to go to a website and buy KKW makeup. So, that is something that is definitely in our wheelhouse. We also created, are you getting this noise?
Yeah, you can stop. Is it?
Stop it back in.
Yeah, that's fine.
Sorry,
go ahead. You can start it. That was funny.
We also created the app for Tyler the Creator, which was a digital experience that brought together everything in his world. So his merchandise, his videos, his concerts, special access for fans. So yes, so really kind of understanding how to develop that fan base, and then how to take your fans on a journey so that you're not just giving them one thing like your photo on social media, but you're really giving them all of the different experiences that they want from their relationship with you, the celebrity. Because as you said, nowadays these celebrities are not just having a single career. they're really, you know, expanding what it is they do, whether that's making sneakers and selling sneakers, or, you know, creating music videos or
Mm-hmm.
live events.
Mm-hmm. No, it's true. Okay, so to end, the last question, is there any advice or anything you would give to somebody who, you know, their aspirations is to become a CEO? Is it better to kind of go through the system or to try to create your own company and do it on your own?
Hmm. It's interesting because I almost see CEO as not a, it's kind of a, it's not like I want to be a doctor or a lawyer or a journalist. It's, I want to, I guess it's like I want to run something. I want to, you know, be in charge of my own destiny and help along the destinies of others. So I would say if you have that golden idea, then I think being a founder CEO is something these days that is very attractive for the right kind of person if you've got that entrepreneurial spirit. And if you are someone who is more part of a larger organization, you know, I think it's more like a large small thing. If you're already part of a larger organization and you want to make it to the top job, then, you know, there are a lot of different factors involved. You know, it's about working hard, and it's about really developing the right skills and transparency and communication and leadership. There's a lot that goes into it.
Mm-hmm. That's true. This has been great. I thank you so much for coming on. And I really appreciate your advice and kind of looking at the industry right now with during COVID. It's been very interesting watching from afar. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.